Hello, I'm Natalie Wood. This is one of my favorite books, Marjorie Morningstar. I just had the opportunity offlaying Natalie Wood had everything. Beauty, talent, we were all together. We were going to celebrate Easter and a Hollywood career most actors goldenly dream of. From a child star in Miracle on 34th Street to a powerhouse in West Side Story, she grew up on screen. Audiences loved her, directors praised her, and her name sparkled in lights for decades. But one cold night in 1981 changed everything. Natalie vanished from her yacht, and what followed was a storm of mystery, whispers, and unanswered questions. Some say her final words were haunting. Others say they were heartbreaking. Join us as we uncover the chilling truth behind Natalie Wood's final night and the words that still echo to this day. A difficult start behind the scenes. Natalie Wood's early life wasn't as shiny as her on-screen image. She was born as Natalia Nicola Zacharino to Russian immigrant parents. Her name was later changed by studio executives to Natalie Wood when she began acting. While many remember her as a glamorous star, her childhood was full of pressure and pain. Her father Nikolai worked as a laborer but often had violent outbursts fueled by alcohol. Her mother, Maria, was deeply controlling. She believed in strange fortunes and pushed Natalie hard to become famous. Maria once told people that a fortune teller had predicted her second child would be a great beauty known around the world, but warned her to beware of dark water. That warning stayed with Natalie for the rest of her life. Her mother wanted her daughter to fulfill the prophecy no matter what. She made Natalie the family's breadwinner from a very young age, and most of the decisions about her future were made by her mother, not Natalie herself. Despite everything going on at home, Natalie began acting at just 4 years old, and even then she was already winning hearts in Hollywood. Her first big steps in Hollywood. Natalie's very first screen appearance came in 1943 in a movie called The Moon is Down. She was only 4 years old. Soon after, she got an athlersmal role in Happy Land. Even though her parts were short, she caught the attention of director Irving Pachel. He believed she had real talent and kept in touch with her family. When another role came up, he called her mother and asked if Natalie could come to Los Angeles for a screen test. Her mother, who had huge dreams for her, packed up the whole family and moved them to Los Angeles. Natalie's father didn't agree with the move, but he was overpowered by his wife's ambition. According to Natalie's younger sister, Lana, Pachel became so fond of Natalie that he even wanted to adopt her. Natalie landed the part in Tomorrow is Forever when she was just 7 years old. She played a German orphan after World War II, acting alongside Orson Welles and Claudette Colbert. Beauty acting wasn't always easy. In one scene when Natalie couldn't cry on cue, her mother tore apart a butterfly right in front of her just to get a reaction. Welles later said Natalie was so good it was terrifying. He described her as a natural, saying, "Natalie doesn't act from the script, she acts from the heart." That raw talent made her stand out early on. After that, she continued working and acted in The Bride Wore Boots and The Ghost and Mrs. Moore, where she played Gene Tierney's daughter. Natalie was quickly becoming one of the most watched child stars in Hollywood, the film that made her a star. In 1947, Natalie starred in the movie that would make her a household name, Miracle on 34th Street. She played a little girl who didn't believe in Santa Claus, but later changed her mind. The film was a huge hit and became a Christmas classic. It starred Maureen O'Hara and John Payne, but it was Natalie who stole the spotlight. She became so popular after the movie that even Macy's invited her to be in their Thanksgiving Day parade. Over the next few years, Natalie kept working non-stop. She acted in over 20 films as a child, usually playing the daughter in family dramas. These included Driftwood, Scut, Chicken Every Sunday, and Father was a fullback, where she worked again with Maureen O'Hara. She also played Betty Davis's daughter in The Star and was featured in films like The Green Promise, Our Very Own, and Dear Brat. Because she was still a child, she had to go to school on set. California law required that child actors study for 3 hours a day. Natalie took her studies seriously and was known as a straight-A student. One director, Joseph Manowitz, said, "In all my years in the business, I never met a smarter Muppet." Natalie remembered those days fondly and Ansa said, "I always felt guilty when I knew the crew was sitting around waiting for me to finish my 3 hours. As soon as the teacher let us go, I ran to the set as fast as I could." But even though she was smart and successful, her mother continued to control every part of her life. She picked her roles, coached her constantly, and micromanaged everything. Natalie may have been a star on the outside, but inside she was still a little girl trying to please her mother, growing up in the spotlight. As Natalie got older, her career didn't slow down. She stepped into teenage roles on television, appearing in shows like The Pride of the Family, The Pepsi-Cola Playhouse, and General Electric Theater. She also appeared in a TV version of Fighty and called one of her episodes from GE Theater the best thing she ever did. "I'm not going back in that zoo. I'm never going back." She continued to appear in movies such as The Silver Chalice and One Desire. But the biggest turning point came when she was 16. Natalie starred alongside James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause. This film changed everything for her. It was the first time she really connected with a script and wanted to do it for herself, not just because her parents told her to. She later said, "Until then, I did what I was told. Her parents didn't want her to take the role, but she went ahead anyway." And she was right. Her performance earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. Natalie had finally stepped out of her child star image and became a serious young actress. After that, she acted in more films like The Searchers, A Cry in the Night, and had parts in TV shows like Studio One in Hollywood and Warner Brothers Presents. She graduated from Venice High School in 1956 and continued acting in girlfriend roles that the studio assigned her, though she found many of them uninteresting. She kept working. Warner Brothers even tried to turn her and Tab Hunter into a box office duo, casting them together in The Burning Hills and The Girl He Left Behind. She was also paired with Ephraim Zimbalist JRB in Bombers B-52 and finally got a lead role in Marjorie Morning Star. In that film, she played a young Jewish girl trying to find her own path while dealing with her family's expectations. Well, stop the world. You must be friendly. Well, now that's true. Natalie was now proving she could carry more serious and mature roles. And this was just the beginning of a long, complex career. The rise of a serious star. As Natalie moved beyond her teenage years, her acting began to shift. She was no longer the sweet child Hollywood once knew. Critics began to notice something new in her performances, a quiet intensity, a kind of restlessness that mirrored the young generation of the 1950s. In 1958, she played opposite Frank Sinatra in Kings Go Forth, but soon after she began refusing roles. Warner Brothers didn't like that and suspended her for nearly a year. When she returned, she starred in Cash McCall with James Garner in 1960, but it wasn't a hit. Then came All the Fine Young Cannibals, which also flopped. Natalie was stuck in a tough place. She wasn't a child actor anymore, but the right adult roles hadn't found her. Yet that changed in 1961 when she was cast in Splendor in the Grass by director Elia Kazan. Natalie had been inspired by a streetcar named Desiree and admired both Kazan and actress Vivian Lee. When Kazan met Natalie, he saw something real behind her polished image. "I detected behind the well-mannered our young wife front a desperate twinkle in her eyes," he said. In Splendor in the Grass, she played a girl who has a mental breakdown after being rejected by her lover, played by Warren Beatty. That role earned Natalie Major Award nominations, including the Academy Award, Golden Globe, and BAFTA. It marked a turning point in her career. She was no longer seen as just a former child star. She was now taken seriously as a dramatic actress. Stardom, setbacks, and one last comeback. After Splendor in the Grass, Natalie's star continued to rise. In West Side Story, she played Maria, a performance praised even though her singing was dubbed. It was another huge success. Then came Gypsy in 1962, where she did her own singing and impressed critics again. She received her third Oscar nomination at just 25 years old for Love with the Proper Stranger. That made her one of the youngest actors to earn 3 nominations at the time. Natalie also starred in comedies with Tony Curtis like Sex and the Single Girl and The Great Race, where she even used her Russian language skills in the role. Director Sidney Pollack once said, when she was right for the part, there was no one better. She continued to act with big stars like Robert Redford in Incidentally Clover and This Property is Condemned, earning more Golden Globe nominations. By the mid-1960s, she was one of the most famous women in Hollywood along with Elizabeth Taylor and Audrey Hepburn. But fame came with pressure. In 1966, a Harvard comedy group gave her a Worst Actress award. Natalie didn't take it personally. In fact, she accepted the award in person, quite a good sport. One newspaper said that year she starred in Penelope, but film didn't do well. Natalie said the experience was painful. I broke routine hives and suffered anguish that was very real. Pain every day we shot. Cher called the director even told her, "Natalie, I think you're resisting this film," while she rolled on the floor in distress. After Penelope, she took a step back. She paid Warner Brothers $175,000 to end her contract and fired her entire team, agents, lawyers, publicists, everyone. She turned her focus to therapy and healing. She then married producer Richard Gregson in 1969, but it wasn't long before she made a quiet return. Natalie's comeback film was Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice in 1969. It explored modern relationships and was a huge success. It broke box office records in its first week. Critics loved her mix of humor and maturity. But instead of diving back into constant work, Natalie slowed down. In 1970, she gave birth to her daughter Natasha and mostly stepped away from films. She acted only occasionally in the 1970s, appearing in The Candidate, The Affair, and Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. She reunited with Robert Wagner on his TV show Switch and Heart to Heart. She also returned for films like Meteor in 1979 and The Last Married Couple in America in 1980. In that film, she shocked viewers by using a curse word in a marital scene, something few expected from someone with such a clean publicity image. Her final movie was Brainstorm with Christopher Walken, but she passed away before it was finished. Director Douglas Trumbull rewrote parts of the film, and Natalie's sister Lana helped complete some of her scenes. Around the same time, Natalie was doing well on television. Her role in From Here to Eternity won her a Golden Globe in 1980. She had also planned to appear on Stay-Gyn Anastasia and stars in a new film based on Country of the Heart. Sadly, she never got the chance. But even near the end, people still saw her as a Hollywood icon. In one of her last interviews, she was described as our sexual conscience on the silver screen. Time magazine wrote, "She always had work, proving that even when critics doubted her, Natalie Wood never stopped being in demand." Love, loss, and second chances. By the age of 16, she had an affair with 44-year-old director Nicholas Ray and later with co-star Dennis Hopper. She dated famous names like Elvis Presley and Tab Hunter. Though in Hunter's case, it was later revealed that he was secretly gay and she helped keep his public image safe. When Natalie turned 18, she finally got to date the man she had admired for years, actor Robert Wagner. 1 year later, in 1957, they get married and became Hollywood's golden couple. But behind the smiles and magazine covers, their marriage had serious problems. By 1961, Natalie discovered Wagner was having an affair with another man. The couple announced a trial separation and officially divorced in 1962. After that, Natalie dated actors like Warren Beatty and Michael Caine. She was briefly engaged to a Venezuelan shoemaker named Ladislav Blatnik in 1965, but that didn't last either. In 1969, she married British film producer Richard Gregson. They had a daughter together, Natasha, in 1970, but even that marriage didn't last. Natalie filed for divorce in 1971, and it became official in 1972. Around that same time, she started seeing Robert Wagner again. They had stayed in touch, and their connection never truly faded. In July 1972, Natalie and Wagner remarried on a boat called the Ramblin' Rose near Malibu. Their second marriage was much stronger. They had another daughter, Courtney, in 1974. While Wagner's TV career was taking off with Heart to Heart, Natalie was acting less. Some said she was stepping away to be with family. Others believed she was finding it harder to get strong roles after turning 40. During this time, there were also rumors about a secret relationship with a former FBI agent named Donald G. Wilson. In 2015, Wilson claimed he and Natalie had an affair from 1973 to 1977, which said started while she was pregnant with Courtney. He later talked about it on camera in a 2016 documentary. But whatever may have been happening behind the scenes, Natalie and Wagner stayed together through it all. A new film and a final weekend. Natalie's final film was Brainstorm, where she played a scientist married to another scientist played by Christopher Walken. Walken had just won an Oscar for The Deer Hunter, and Natalie was nervous about acting opposite him. She thought she looked tooled next to him since she was 5 years older. But once filming began, they grew close. Crew members noticed a certain energy between them. Assistant director David McGifford said it wasn't like they were lovey-dovey on the set or anything like that, but they just had a current about them and an electricity. For Thanksgiving weekend in 1981, Natalie and Wagner invited Walken to join them for a trip on their yacht, Splendor, near Catalina Island. Wagner loved the yacht and often took the family sailing. Natalie once said in an interview, "It's easy with the boat," smiling as she described how it gave them privacy. That weekend, the group planned to relax and enjoy time away from the city. But something went terribly wrong, and the world would never forget what happened next. A mystery that still haunts Hollywood. The morning of November the 29th, 1981 brought devastating news. Natalie Wood was found floating in the water near Catalina Island. Her death was ruled an accident. The official cause, probable drowning in ocean, but the full story left many questions. The night before, Natalie Walken, and the yacht's captain had dinner on the island. Witnesses said the group had been drinking. They returned to the yacht around 1000 p.m. using a small dinghy called the Valiant. Wagner later told police that Natalie had gone to bed at around 10:45. He stayed up talking with Walken for a bit longer, but when he went to the bedroom, she was gone. That's when he noticed the dinghy was missing too. Wagner said they immediately called for help. The Coast Guard, Harbor Patrol, and even helicopters joined the search, but it was a helicopter that finally spotted her body. Natalie Wood was declared dead at 7:44 a.m. The coroner, Thomas Nguchi, noted that Natalie had several bruises in her arms and legs, but he said they were likely caused during the drowning and did not suggest foul play. Still, many people believed there was more to the story. At her funeral on December 3rd, Wagner was seen crying heavily. The service was attended by Hollywood legends Laurence Olivier, Frank Sinatra, Rock Hudson, Gregory Peake, Elizabeth Taylor, Fred Air, David Nann, Gene Kelly, Elia Kazan, and more. The media and fans crowded outside hoping for answers or even a glimpse. Olivier flew in all the way from London just to be there. Natalie was buried at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles. Her final resting place became a symbol of both her beauty and the mystery that still surrounds her. Even today, typing Natalie Wood death into Google brings up millions of results. The world still wonders what truly happened that night. And because she died so young and in such a mysterious way, Natalie Wood's legacy remains unfinished. In 2011, 30 years after she died, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department decided to reopen the case. By 2018, they held a press conference. Captain Christopher Bergner explained that new witnesses had come forward. These people gave fresh details and created a new timeline of Natalie's final hours. Lieutenant John Coronacled Robert Wagner, a person of interest in the case. He said they still wanted to hear Wagner's version of what happened that night. According to Karina, people on nearby boats heard a couple arguing loudly. Some also heard a woman screaming for help. He was the last one with Natalie, Karina said about Wagner, and somehow she ends up in theater and drowns. The case, even now, is still open. Suzanne Finstead, the author of Natasha, the biography of Natalie Wood, had already written about troubling arguments between Natalie and Wagner. One of her sources was Dennis Davern, the captain of the boat Splendor. In recent interviews, Davern's account matched what new witnesses also said they heard: fighting, shouting, and cries for help from a woman. These details painted a dark picture of what really might have happened on that yacht. And as the investigation ended, all eyes turned to the one person who had been there the enemy. The man who witnessed it all firsthand and later broke his silence was none other than Dennis Davern. The captain speaks out. Dennis Davern was more than just a boat captain. He was a family friend and a Navy veteran. He had been on board with Natalie Wagner and Christopher Walken during that final weekend. For many years, Davern supported the original version of Thestory, but in later interviews and in the book Goodbye Natalie, Goodbye Splendor, co-written with Marty Relly, he revealed something else. Davern claimed that after Natalie's body was found, Wagner told him and Walken to stick to the first version of events. That version said Natalie went to bed and Wagner later found her missing. But Davern said the truth was different. The argument started the day before. He told Nancy Grace in a TV interview. He described a weekend filled with tension. Wagner, he said, was jealous of Walken. Natalie and Walken spent hours together at a bar on Catalina Island. They laughed and seemed very close. When Wagner saw them, he was furious. That evening, the group had dinner at Doug Sharber Reef Restaurant. They drank champagne, cocktails, and 2 bottles of wine. At some point, someone even threw a glass at the wall. Restaurant staff said the group was clearly drunk. The manager worried they wouldn't make it safely back to the yacht. They used their dinghy, Valiant, to return to the boat. Hours later, Natalie was dead. What happened after they returned to the Splendor changed over time. At first, Walken told police he and Wagner had a small disagreement about parenting since Natalie was away from her children while filming. He said they made peace quickly, but Davern later said that after returning to the yacht, things got worse. According to him, Wagner smashed a bottle and shouted at Walken, "Are you trying to fuff my wife?" Davern said Walken went to his room and Natalie also walked away. Wagner followed her. Davern then heard them arguing loudly on the deck. Suddenly, everything went silent. Davern said he went to check and found Wagner standing alone. Wagner told him Natalie was missing. They searched but couldn't find her. Then Wagner said the dinghy is missing too. This was strange. Natalie was terrified of water. Diver couldn't believe she would take the boat out on her own. He also said Wagner didn't want to turn on the floodlights or call for help right away. He was worried about bad publicity. And so no official call for help was made until 1:30 a.m., nearly 2 hours after Natalie disappeared. That delay raised more questions. Lana Wood, Natalie's younger sister, was never satisfied with the story. She said Natalie would never have left the yacht in just a nightgown. She believed her sister was trying to get away from something or someone. In 2013, Wagner's lawyer released a statement saying Wagner had fully cooperated over the years and answered every question from investigators, but police said they had tried to talk to Wagner again at least 10 times since 2011, and he always refused. "We would love to talk to Robert Wagner," said Karina, "but we can't force him." A mystery with no clear end. Over the years, more pieces of the story have come to light. Suzanne Finstead said she had given the lead detective new eyewitnesses. One of them was Apperson Davern, called right after Natalie died. That call, she said, gave important details about how Natalie went overboard. Even so, Wagner has never been charged with a crime. Any statement gives now would be completely voluntary. The sheriff's department said they were still hoping someone else would come forward with new information. In 2018, the coroner officially changed the cause of death from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors. Vinstead said that meant Natalie was wrongly blamed for her own death for many years. She had been painted as a drunk who caused her own accident. But now that story was being questioned. Wagner wrote in his memoir that there were only 2 possible reasons Natalie ended up in the water. Either she was trying to get away from the argument or she was trying to teeth dinghy. He said, but the bottom line is that nobody knows exactly what happened. Natalie and Wagner's daughter, Courtney, was only 7 when her mother died. She has always stood by her father. In an interview, she said, "There are certain people in our lives that continue to drudge up all this speculation and stories every year for no other reason than to indulge themselves." Walken too has said very little about the night Natalie died. In a 1997 Playboy interview, he said that people often couldn't accept how strange accidents can be. People slip in the bathtub, fall downstairs, or step off curb in London because they think the cars come from the other side and they die. Walken explained, "One final theory came from Dr. Thomas Nucci, the coroner who worked on the case. He believed that Natalie's heavy water-soaked jacket might have caused her to drown. He said the jacket could have weighed up to 40 lb when wet. In his view, that weight dragged her down when she tried to climb into the dinghy. Her blood alcohol level was 12, the result of about 6 drinks. That amount, he said, would have slowed her movements and made it harder to survive." In 2018, the case again made headlines when the sheriff's department confirmed Wagner was still a person of interest. Lieutenant Karina said in a documentary, "We know now that he was the last person to be with Natalie before she disappeared." And yet, despite decades of investigation, interviews, and public attention, the full truth of what happened to Natalie Wood that night has never been discovered. Her last haunting words. More than 30 years after Natalie Wood's mysterious death, 2 new witnesses came forward with chilling details. This couple, who had been on a nearby boat, told police they heard a terrible argument coming from Natalie's yacht, Splendor, just before she fell into the water. Their story supported what the ex-captain, Dennis Davern, had already claimed in his book. Davern said he heard Natalie's husband, Robert Wagner, scream, "Get off my ************ boat," before Natalie vanished. He also said Wagner wouldn't let him radio for help when they noticed she was missing. The two new witnesses said they had been too scared to speak up at the time because of the powerful names involved. But after seeing the story in the news again, they finally changed their minds and shared what they had heard that night. Another witness, Marilyn Wayne, had also come forward earlier. She was on a nearby yacht with her son. Marilyn said they heard a woman crying for help, shouting, "Help me! Someone please help me! I'm drowning." Then she said, Amon's voice, slurred and angry, replied, "Oh, hold on. We're coming to get you." Following these shocking new statements, officials changed Natalie's cause of death. It was no longer ruled an accident. Her post-mortem report was updated to say her death was undetermined, showing just how serious and suspicious the case had become. Despite all the new witness statements, the interviews, and the reopened investigation, the mystery of Natalie Wood's death still has no clear ending. Do you believe the truth about Natalie Wood's final moments will ever come out, or has it been lost forever? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.